Hello learners, how are you all? And in today's lecture, we are going to start with digestion of food topic. Yes, so every day our body performs different kind of functions. For example, excretion, digestion, respiration, etc. Now out of these processes, digestion is considered as the vital process of our body because it provides energy to our body. Now, so the major function of digestion is conversion of complex food materials, that is complex food substances, into simpler forms which are more absorbable for our body, such as the nutrients which are present in our body, for example, carbohydrates, fats, lipids, minerals, proteins, etc. So digestion becomes the moment we put food in our mouth, and the food that we eat undergoes various kind of processes such as mechanical process and chemical process. Now, if we talk about the mechanical process, it is basically the grinding of food into smaller pieces by our teeth. And if we talk about the chemical process, in the chemical process, the enzymes which are secreted throughout our digestive tract, they help in the digestion of food throughout the whole process of digestion. Now, if we observe our alimentary canal, it leads first to our buccal cavity. And our buccal cavity consists of teeth and tongue. Now, this teeth and tongue helps in the processes of mastication of food and swallowing the food. Now, see this animation which is shown on your screen. Here this person is taking a bite of a pizza, and after taking this bite, to digest it, he is using his teeth and tongue for proper mastication, or you can also say that for proper grinding of his food. Now after the mastication is done, you see him swallowing the food for further digestion inside his stomach. Now let us go in a little more detail about the processes that happens in our buccal cavity. Now imagine, take a bite of pizza yourself. Do you feel saliva is secreted in your mouth? Now, can you differentiate between the texture just after you take the bite of the pizza and after you chew it thoroughly? Yes, a soft mass of chewed food that is mixed with the saliva is formed in your mouth. And that particular soft mass of chewed food with saliva is called as bolus, as you can see in the animation shown on your screen. Now what you do after you chew your food properly? You swallow it, right? So that process of swallowing your food is called as deglutition, as it is clearly shown in the second animation on your screen. So the food that you swallow, it travels to your stomach with the wave-like contractions by the muscles of your esophagus till your stomach. And that particular movement, that wave-like contractions movement, which is written right here, is called as peristalsis. And this peristalsis process, it takes place throughout your digestive tract. So till now, we studied how mechanically the food travels inside our stomach. Now, if we talk about the chemical digestion, we will first start with our buccal cavity in which saliva is secreted. So yes, saliva consists of electrolytes and some enzyme. And electrolytes such as sodium, potassium, chloride ions and bicarbonate. And enzymes such as salivary amylase and lysozyme. So in our mouth, around 30% of starch is digested into maltose, which is the simpler form of complex carbohydrates inside our food. So maltose is considered as the simpler form of food. And this starch getting converted into maltose is in the presence of salivary amylase, which is the enzyme present in saliva with pH 6.8. Now, here is another important point for you, that the digestion of carbohydrates is taking place in our buccal cavity. Yes, so digestion of carbohydrates. This point you need to remember. Now, if we talk about another enzyme which is present in our saliva, that is lysozyme, and it acts as an antibacterial agent that prevents infections that might occur in our mouth. So after the bolus has reached our stomach, the second site of digestion becomes what? Our stomach. Now our stomach has different kind of gastric glands which are present in the mucosal layer of our stomach, and those are, first one is the muscle neck cells, which helps in the secretion of mucus. Second one is peptic or chief cells, which helps in secretion of a proenzyme, that is pepsinogen. Now, pepsinogen in our stomach is present in the inactive form. Inactive form. Now, the third type of cell which is present is parietal or oxyntic cells, which helps in the secretion of hydrochloric acid and some intrinsic factors. Now let us begin with the process of digestion inside the stomach. So food that we swallow and which reaches our stomach is stored for 4 to 5 hours in our stomach. Now, as we know that gastric glands inside our stomach secretes HCl, pepsinogen and mucus. So yes, because of the presence of HCl, the gastric juice converts into acidic. And when this acidic gastric juice get mixed with the food, that bolus that reaches our stomach, now that particular food converts into chyme. So earlier it was bolus and now it has converted into chyme. So yes, another important function of hydrochloric acid is that it converts the inactive pepsinogen present inside the stomach, inactive pepsinogen, it converts it into the active pepsin. Now, if we talk about the functions of pepsin, pepsin helps in the conversion of proteins into proteases and peptones that are also called as peptides. So here, the important point for you to remember is again that digestion of protein is taking place here in this site. Digestion of protein. In the buccal cavity, we saw that the digestion of carbohydrates was taking place, and now here in this site, in the stomach, the digestion of protein is taking place. So there is one more thing, that because hydrochloric acid is present in our stomach, so it might damage the epithelial layers of the stomach. So to avoid this damage, the mucus and the bicarbonates which are present inside the gastric juices only, they protect and lubricates the epithelial layers of stomach from the concentrated hydrochloric acid, because of which the epithelial layers of the stomach do not get damaged. Now, for infants, the substance renin is present inside their stomach for the digestion of milk proteins. And why? Because the infants do not eat solid food. For this reason, instead of pepsin, substance renin is present inside their stomach. Now, if we talk about another function of the gastric glands, it is the release of small amount of lipases, and lipases further helps in the breakdown of fats. So after the chyme get treated with the gastric juices, it enters in the duodenum of the small intestine through the pyloric sphincter, as you can see in this animation. So basically the pyloric sphincter is the opening between, it is the opening between stomach and small intestine. As you can clearly see in this animation shown on your screen, that the thick chyme enters in the duodenum through the pyloric sphincter. Now in the duodenum, there is a juice. There is a mixture of juices present in the small intestine with various kind of enzymes for further breakdown of the food. And these juices consist of bile, pancreatic juice and intestinal juice. So the muscularis layer which is present in the small intestine, it helps in the mixing of food with the digestive enzymes which are present in the juices. Now with the help of this image, we will see how these digestive juices enters in the small intestine. So you see this yellow colored organ, that is pancreas, present or located just below the stomach. It secretes the pancreatic juice which travels through this green passage into the small intestine. Now, if we talk about liver, the liver secretes the bile juice, and this bile juice also travels through this green passage till the small intestine. Now, if you see the common conjunction of these two passages, which is known as hepatopancreatic duct, hepatopancreatic duct, through which the bile juice and the pancreatic juice both enters or released inside the duodenum of the small intestine. Now, inside this duodenum of small intestine, the major breakdown of biomacromolecules takes place. Major breakdown of biomacromolecules takes place. It means the major breakdown of the complex substances are taking place inside the duodenum of small intestine. As we saw that pancreas and liver plays very crucial role in the process of digestion because they release pancreatic juice and bile juices respectively, which helps in the process of digestion. Now let us understand the role of pancreas in more detail. So now pancreatic juice contains various inactive enzymes such as trypsinogen, chymotrypsinogen, procarboxypeptidases, amylases, lipases, and nucleases. Now let us understand how this enzyme gets activated. So for the first part, the pancreatic juice enters in the small intestine. As we have seen earlier in the image, that pancreatic juice enters inside the small intestine, and in this region, small intestine, all the enzymes which are in inactive form present inside the pancreatic juice gets activated. Now let us begin with the inactive trypsinogen. It is in the inactive form. Now it gets activated into trypsin, which is active in its form because of the presence of enzyme, that is enterokinase. And this enterokinase enzyme is present inside the small intestine. So clearly here we see that this enzyme is getting activated after it enters in the small intestine. Now, this active trypsin now activates other enzymes present in the pancreatic juice such as chymotrypsinogen, lipases, amylases, nucleases, and procarboxypeptidases. Peptidases. Now here's one more thing, that this enterokinase enzyme which is present in the small intestine, it also helps in the activation of chymotrypsinogen into chymotrypsin. Now after all these enzymes gets activated, they help or participate in further breakdown of molecules. Now let us begin with the role of liver. So liver secretes bile juice, and the bile consists of bilirubin and biliverdin, which are the bile pigments present in the bile juice, and these bile pigments are formed after the breakdown of RBCs. So apart from bilirubin and biliverdin, bile salts, cholesterol and phospholipids are also present inside the bile juice. So now let us study the functions of bile juice. So bile juice helps in the emulsification of fats, that is, it helps in the breakdown of fats into very small micelles. Now, apart from emulsification of fats, bile also activates the lipases, and this enzyme helps in the breakdown of fats. Breakdown of fats into the food which are easily absorbed by the walls of small intestine. Now here is one more important point, that the breakdown or digestion of fats is taking place here. Digestion of fats is taking place here. Now we will understand how these various enzymes are helping the complex substances to break into simpler forms. And as we have learned earlier, that all these enzymes present in the bile and pancreatic juice gets activated in the small intestine, and these enzymes are helping convert these complex molecules of the chyme into simpler forms. So presence of trypsin, chymotrypsin carboxypeptidase converts proteins, peptones and proteoses into dipeptides. And presence of pancreatic amylases converts polysaccharides into disaccharides. And presence of lipases in the bile converts fats into diglycerides and monoglycerides. Now, the action of nucleases converts or breaks down nucleic acid into nucleotides and nucleosides. So the complex molecules which are broken down by the action of bile and pancreatic juice converts into simpler forms. And these end products, these simpler forms, are again converted into more absorbable molecules by intestinal juice or succus entericus, that is secreted by the walls of intestine. So now the chemical reaction taking place in the intestinal juice or succus entericus are the presence of dipeptidases enzyme, which is converting dipeptides into amino acids, and the presence of maltase converts maltose into glucose plus glucose, and the enzyme lactase converts lactose into glucose plus galactose, and the enzyme sucrase, which is present inside the intestinal juice, converts sucrose into glucose plus fructose, and the enzyme nucleotidases converts nucleotides into nucleosides, and again the nucleosidases enzyme converts the nucleosides into sugar plus base, and the presence of lipases converts di and monoglycerides into fatty acids plus glycerol. So the intestinal juice that converts end products into more absorbable forms has mucus, which is secreted by the goblet cells, and some secretions of brushwater cells. So the other enzymes which are present in the intestinal juice are disaccharidases, dipeptidases, lipases and nucleosidases. So our small intestine consists of three regions, that is duodenum, jejunum and ileum. So the breakdown of biomacromolecules that we studied earlier, it takes place inside the duodenum. So here I will write down that the major breakdown of molecules takes place here. Yes, it takes place inside the duodenum. Now, the simple substances that are broken down are absorbed in ileum and jejunum region of small intestine. So, if I talk about jejunum here, so the food moves quickly from the jejunum, and jejunum is generally considered as empty of food. So here the food moves quickly and it is generally empty of food. Now coming to the ileum region, so in the ileum region, the food moves really very slowly. Food moves slowly because for the maximum absorption of the nutrients. So food moves slowly here, and the maximum absorption of nutrients takes place here. Maximum absorption of nutrients. So the important point here for you to remember is that in the small intestine only, the major breakdown is taking place in the duodenum and the maximum absorption is taking place in the ileum. So we can say that the major processes of digestion and absorption is taking place in the small intestine of our whole digestive tract. So after the maximum absorption in the small intestine, the undigested and unabsorbed substances are passed on to the large intestine. So in large intestine, there is no significant digestive activity that happens. So here, the major function of the large intestine is the absorption of water, minerals and certain drugs that we consume. And another function is the secretion of mucus that helps in adhering the waste together, and it also lubricates its way for an easy passage throughout the large intestine. So in large intestine, the undigested and unabsorbed substances called feces, it enters through the ileocecal valve inside the large intestine. As you can see here, the ileocecal valve. Now, the function of ileocecal valve is to prevent the backflow of fecal matter inside the small intestine. Now, the fecal matters that enters in the large intestine, it enters inside the cecum first, and from the cecum, it travels up to the ascending colon, then entering inside the transverse colon, and after that, it enters the descending colon. Now, throughout this passage, the absorption of water and minerals is taking place simultaneously till it reaches the rectum region of the large intestine, where the feces is temporarily stored in the rectum till defecation. Now, the activities of gastrointestinal tract are under neural and hormonal control for proper coordination of different parts. Now, first, understanding about the hormonal control. So, the secretion of digestive juices, it is carried out by the local hormones which are produced by gastric and intestinal mucosa. That is, the gastric glands present inside the stomach, the gastric glands which are present inside the stomach, and the intestinal mucosa which is present in the small intestine. Now, if we talk about the neural control, so whenever we see our favorite dish, what happens? Our mouth becomes watery, and it is because of the secretion of saliva on sight, smell or presence of food. So apart from secretion of saliva, the central nervous system also helps in the secretions from gastric glands and intestinal mucosa. So muscular activities of different parts are also controlled by our central nervous system. So yes, this was all about this topic, digestion of food. I hope you understood this topic. So now you can go to the EduRev to attempt the respective test to cross-check your understanding. And also stay tuned for more amazing content. Thank you.